Today, we're so excited to welcome Lori Bregman to the show. Lori is one of the most sought-after doulas in the country, a celebrated life coach, healer, and author of The Mindful Mom to Be. For over 2 decades, she's been walking alongside women and families through pregnancy, birth, and beyond, supporting them not only physically, but emotionally and spiritually. What makes Lori so special is that she doesn't just prepare you for labor, she prepares you for motherhood as a whole identity shift. She's worked with everyone from first-time moms to high-profile clients, but her heart is always the same, making each family feel seen, supported, and cared for. We cannot wait to dive into her wisdom today, from what it really means to have a doula to how we can all bring more presence and trust into the motherhood journey. So welcome, Lori.
Thanks.
Lori has been up all night at a birth, so we got her fresh to talk about all of this stuff. But we're so excited to have you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we have heard so much about you. You're like the celebrity, the ultimate doula. What led you to become a doula? Like, what was your journey to this?
So I've been doing this for 26 years. I've done probably over 1,600 births.
Wow.
And no two have ever been the same. And no families have ever been the same, or couples, or women, everything. It's just always been, it's always like the ultimate adventure date, right? We know there's going to be a baby. And led me to do this, I believe it was my mom's pregnancy with me and her birth and how I came into the world, which was really hard, and how it affected me as a child. And the healing I did from that really led me to go do this work. Because, you know, when you're not feeling supported or educated or prepared, I think, you know, it affects not only you as a mom, but also your child. So my soul came in to do this work, I feel.
Wow. So what was that? What happened as a baby?
She was just a child who got pregnant, you know, was not married, and it was back in the late 60s. And she basically ended up marrying my father, went into a depression, tried to do everything not to have me. And I felt everything. They put her to sleep. She was alone in the room because she didn't really eat when she was pregnant. I was in an incubator, not like touched for 5 days. And then postpartum depression set in. And, you know, it's a different time, but still we have a lot of work to do in the birth world.
Yeah, I think though sometimes when you have this like very personal why for what you do, so like you're a doula because of this, it just makes it all the better. So like there was a purpose of like why that happened so that you could affect this amazing families that you've touched to get that. Because as someone who is a doula, like it's not an easy job. Like it's a lot, and you have to have so much passion for it, or like, why are you even doing this?
It's so true. I train doulas, and that we talked about last night was what's your reason why, or yesterday, for like getting into this. Like it has to be so strong because it's challenging. And I think a lot of people can't handle this because we don't just squeeze hips. We hold space for the mind, body, and spirit, for the emotional, for the physical, for the mental, the relationship, the
everything,
advocacy, the environment. So it's just kind of, it's a lot to do, but you have to have that strong reason why.
Yes. Okay. So I've had 2 babies now. So has Dale. I've had 2 doulas. And Dale has not had a doula. My first doula was just not like a great fit. She didn't even make it to the hospital. Like when it wasn't great. My second doula, Joanna, who I met.
My fave. I love her.
She was incredible. She just made me feel so seen and validated. And she helped me so much with, if you guys have listened to like my birth story episode and my pregnancy episode, it wasn't the easiest. There was a lot of like fear-mongering of my cervix was thin. Would I go into labor early? What would happen? My baby would be in NICU, like all this stuff. By the way, none of that happened. And Joanna was like this voice of like calm. So not only when she was physically with me, like helping me feel calm, she was just like that, always the voice that I would go to whenever there was something. And she would like get me back into a grounded state. And so I've seen it firsthand, the kind of like amazing magic that happens when you have a good doula, not only like in birth. For me, it was like really the whole pregnancy that she was really there for me. And also she had a lot of great, more homeopathic or more like, you could call them woo-woo if you want, tools instead of always like the route where it's like, oh, here's a medicine for this, or here's XYZ, which sometimes is warranted. But again, Joanna had all sorts of like other like if I couldn't sleep, insomnia, she gave me this like herbal remedy tea, which actually helped versus all of the other things. So anyway, would love for you to share a little bit more of like what a doula's role is. Why would you have one? What are some of the reasons? What are some of the reasons like why people have one? And yeah, more about that.
First of all, Johanna's the best.
Yeah,
she's like my go-to when I'm like, what do I do? Like I'm always calling her because, we don't know everything, right? And it's so nice to have that person. So doulas, we are non-medical care providers, right? I would say support team. We do everything but deliver. I always say doulas, we're great for home births, obviously. We come way before the midwives come and, help you with your breathing and the labor and, different positions and just holding space. But at hospitals, it's really important to have that doula because it's that person you've known. Most people start with me when they're like 4 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
So I build these really deep relationships. So nurses come and go. Doctors come in the last minute. And we are that voice that really trusts birth and then empowers you and, helps empower you, helps remind you what you're capable of. And especially if you're birthing in the medical system, it's nice to have that. We are more holistic. So we can give you remedies. We can, I have a background in life coaching. So I help people through that transition a lot. Like a lot of stuff comes up and I help navigate that. So it's nice to have that. All of us doulas work differently. There's a doula out there for everyone. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different ways of practicing. And when you're looking for a doula, I always say like interview a lot of them and just see who you vibe the best with because, it's like you have to feel really safe and good around their energy.
Yeah, I think that's what you touched on, the safety. I actually didn't interview anyone except for Joanna. I'm a gut feeling girl.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to her on the phone, she just made me feel so seen, supported, safe, all the things that you mentioned. And I kind of just like trusted my gut on it.
Yeah.
But you really want someone to do that for you. But in addition, I think a lot of people talk about like in the hospital not being like advocated for, right? And I think the doula's main role, from my cases, have been like advocating for you and like your desires of like what you would want your birth. Obviously, things are out of your control, but like to really advocate for you, maybe if you don't have the strength or if you're kind of just like in pain or whatever it is.
And I always encourage my clients to advocate for themselves because there's something very powerful in saying, my body, my choice. One thing I always do as a doula is I will always let you know that they're of your choices and your options. Sometimes in a system where they don't really let you know that there are them and ways for you to ask questions. And then I'll never make a choice for somebody. So I'll always sit with you and kind of have you dig a little deeper into what feels right for you. And then no matter what, I'll support you in your choice.
Do you find that most of the women who come to you either do an unmedicated birth or choose to do a home birth versus hospital setting? Like, is there like a split or typically
it's everything?
It's everything.
I have clients that are even like, I have a client in December who's like, listen, I'm going to have a C-section, but I want the support through pregnancy and I'm anxious. So, I'd love you there the day of just to kind of like hold space. They don't really let us doulas back in C-sections, which I have a really hard time with because it's still birth. And it's scary to go back there. But I usually go a couple hours before and get them in a really good place, make sure they're good. And then afterwards, I'll stay with them in postpartum. But advocacy, I will advocate. Like if my client's in the shower and they're coming in and, the other day, one of my clients was last night or the day before, I don't know how long I was there, but one of the midwives came in and she just was, and I was like, she's meditating right now. She really just was like, I need to just kind of get into like a zone. So I was like, can you just come back in a little bit? Is it important? And she's like, no. And I was like, okay, just let her meditate because she just needs to get centered again. And so it's kind of something like that,
Are there things that you find like with the hospital? I mean, you mentioned not letting you come back with a C-section that you just see and you're like, this is just not the right way. Like, or there should be more ways or there should be more options. Like, is there a common denominator when it comes to hospital births that you're like, I don't love that they push this?
Yeah, induction. Where you have
I want to talk about. Yeah.
We have a real problem with pushing induction. Also fear-mongering, your baby's too big, it's never going to fit, and you don't know until you try, right? I have a client that she's the tiniest thing you've ever seen in your life. And she had a 45-minute birth, pushed out a 10-pound baby, unmedicated. And like, it was no problem for her. And if you look at her, you're like, there's no way she's going to, you know what I mean? And nobody ever told her baby was big. So it's like, it doesn't get in her head. Because what does that do to you? And
it's never accurate.
Yeah. And I don't think medical is amazing when it's necessary. And thank God for it, but I think it's a little overused. And where have we forgotten what women are capable of?
I also have with induction, like I was at a Mommy and Me group and they're like, you're the only person that didn't get induced. And I think it's like, I understand where it's medically necessary, but I think there's this obsession with like knowing the exact day you're going to go. And I've heard a lot of people have complications because of it.
Yeah.
So why do you think that they push medical inductions? Like why, like what is the situation with that? And why should people try to avoid them?
There's a few reasons. There was this thing called the Arrive study, which has been recalled since then, where they found that if you induce at 39 or 40 weeks, you have like the tiniest little chance of a stillborn, not having a stillborn. So it's like they took that and ran with it. It also came out around the time of the pandemic where, they found a way that they can like control people by saying this. And people will still quote the Arrive study, but it's not valid anymore because it was a small group of women that it wasn't like, it was incomplete. Also, it's not these doctors' faults. It's the insurance companies. These doctors are underpaid, overworked. They have to take like 30 clients a day or more to meet their quota. So if they induce, they can kind of control, I get my sleep, I can get my office hours in, I can slow things down, I can speed things up, we can break the water at lunch. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And it's more of a convenience for them than the birthing person because, we forget, like if I ever am like, let's speed things up, let's get things going because I have things to do, I will quit what I'm doing because this is not about me. It's about you guys and your baby. And it's a day you're never going to have again. And I think we need to remember, and I see more and more women and couples that are waking up that are wanting to take back their power in birth. That's something I'm seeing right now. Yet we're with a medical system that hasn't caught up. In LA, we're a little bit ahead of the game.
Well, it's interesting you say that because for my first baby, my doctor was like, just to let you know, I'm a big fan of the 39-week induction. And I actually did not want to be induced. I was like, more for like selfish reasons if I wanted to be surprised. Like my baby did happen to, my water broke at 39 weeks. And then the second time I was pregnant, they were like, we actually got rid of that. We do not induce at 39. Cedars does not let you induce at 39 weeks unless it's like medically necessary. I don't know what that means, but you can't just schedule it. You can only schedule when you're at 40 weeks. So I think that there was that like lift, but before when I had my first child, everyone was like, I want to go 39 weeks so I can go like skip the last week of pregnancy. And a lot of them ended up in C-sections. And I think that there was a correlation between that. And obviously when you need C-sections, of course, I was so open to however this baby comes into the world. And we'll talk about that with Annabel, but it's just there. I feel like the rise of inductions also meant the rise of C-sections. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. Like that's the thing, because I was seeing more birth trauma, more C-sections, people having their intentions. I like to call them birth intentions, not like it's not set in stone, but like the way they were intending to give birth taken away from them. And it was like a cascade of inventions that led to, it was like a domino effect that ended up in places that they didn't want to be. And there's a great movie, The Business of Being Born. It was 16 years ago. My friend Ricky Lake and Abby, they did it. It's more valid today than it was even 16 years ago. And if you watch it, you see how intervention leads to intervention, leads to intervention, leads to intervention, and it just keeps going. And there are times, my client the other day had preeclampsia. It was a valid reason for induction, but just to take a healthy, woman who is having a healthy pregnancy and induce her, just because they can, and that's the other thing people don't realize, they can recommend something, but you have informed consent to say, actually, I'm going to choose to wait. Or if you go over 40 weeks, you can say, or 41 weeks, I'd like to do NST tests, non-stress tests. And, most first-time moms tend to go 41 weeks, 40 in 5 days.
So let's talk about C-sections because I had 2 C-sections, again, completely not by choice. And it honestly makes me feel a little like sad because I carried a lot of shame about my C-section. And I understand it was medically necessary. I pushed for 5 hours and she wouldn't come out and her heart rate went down really fast. And then there were so many people in the room and it was really, really hard for me. And I had a doula and she kept saying, and she missed my entire pushing. She came here. This is not Joanna. Joanna's an angel, but she came right when when all this was happening. And she said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And she kept saying sorry. Like it wasn't a good thing that I was getting to meet my baby. And she, unfortunately, and again, I'm not blaming her, there were a lot of circumstances, but that led to a lot of shame after my birth. And I felt like, oh, my body couldn't do it. Like, I'm not good enough. Like, what did this affect my baby? Like, all of these things. And I had to do a lot of therapy around it to let go of the shame that I had around it. Fast forward to my second birth, I hired a doula. I switched doctors to someone who was pro VBAC. I did everything, the chiropractor, the acupuncture, the pelvic floor therapist, the working out, the exercises, everything. And my baby was Breech. And that birth, though, I did not feel shame, mostly because I had an angel of a doula, Joanna, who literally just made me feel like at peace with how he wanted to be and how he wanted to come out. And that process of me going to the hospital, I went in at 8 p.m. I had the baby at 10 p.m. It was so seamless. He was breastfeeding on me while they were closing me. Like, it was just a beautiful experience. I spent a night at the hospital, came home. My doctor came to see me the next day, and it was an incredible, beautiful birth. And so I know it is possible to, if you're having a C-section or if you have to have one or it's by choice, as you said, there is possibility for you to have that still like a conscious, like happy birth. But I do think like a lot of people don't talk about like the shame that comes with C-section.
Yeah, I don't feel like you can fail at birth. That's just my belief, because you're still open. You still, you know what I mean? Even on that table, the sacrifice, is the sacrifice starts at birth, right? And then no matter how you birth, you're still being open. You're everything. There's parts of you, and you tried everything.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it sounds like pushing for 5 hours, laboring, doing all the things. You tried everything. And it also teaches us that we don't have control over everything. I do believe that things show up on the way while you're pregnant or in birth that are going to help you prepare you for motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really tap into that, you'll see there's been a thread that you're like, oh, this helped me for this particular child I was meant to have.
Mm-hmm.
And there is this thing of, gosh, I don't have control over everything. That these babies come and teach us certain things, and motherhood is it's the ultimate sacrifice. And like, look what you did to lay on that table after trying everything to do what you needed to do for your baby. And to me, it's still birth. You gave birth. It just was in a different way than you thought that you had intended. It is a sacrifice. It is, C-section's not the easy way out. I think people sometimes think that if I have a C-section, it's going to be so easy. It's not.
Yeah, I remember I went to my therapist after it, and I was telling her about all the shame, and she was like, would you do anything for your child? And I was like, yeah. She goes, would you get hit by a car? Would you do this? And I'm like, absolutely, anything. And she goes, a lot of women say that to their kids, but they never show them. And look what you did. The day she was born, you showed your daughter that you would do anything for her. You opened your body, you cut it open. You didn't want that. So like the values that you had, again, wanted, you went away from to keep her safe. And she really helped me put it into perspective. And then also my husband, when I told him about the shame, he was like, what do you mean you saved her life? And I was like, but if I wish it was that simple in my head, because I see all these women giving birth, no epidural, and this beautiful experience at home. And I'm like, wow, I wish that could be me. And why can't my body do that? And again, I've worked through this now, so I don't feel like that as strongly. But I think in the moment, especially when I had the doula with me who was supposed to be on my team and kept saying I'm so sorry, this shouldn't have happened. I don't know. I just going into the room, hearing that rhetoric made me just feel less than.
Like you failed.
Yes.
And she probably just didn't know what to say.
Yeah. So again, not her fault at all, but that imprint left a lasting.
Yes. It's hard. I just went through this with a client of mine. I think like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Can you tell us how you were able to support her through it or how she felt?
When she was going back there, she says, I did everything right. I go, you did, and you did not fail. I mean, you did not fail. You're still having a baby. You tried everything, and she's like, I sacrificed so much. And I said, and you're doing that right now for your, it is. And I was like, you're doing what you need to do for your child. And I think that's the first thing this doctor was incredible. And we don't have control how these babies come in. I do believe, if you want to go woo-woo and spiritual, that these babies do pick the way they choose to come into the world. And there's always some kind of great opportunity in these birth moments or for growth. There's a piece, a little golden nugget that sometimes comes from it not going the way that we wanted. There's always something in birth that comes up. I always say it's like a plant medicine journey in a weird way. It stretches you and pushes you, whether you end up with a C-section or you go unmedicated or something always comes up that is helping you for the other side.
It's the true letting go of control. I think that's the lesson I really needed to learn because I felt like I had a lot of control in me. And I think after that happened, just you can't control. And one thing I love, I saw in your content the other day, and I know you use this example a lot of being a surfer and waves.
Yeah.
And when labor comes or when things are hard, instead of resisting it and going the other way, it's just letting it come, going into the wave. And I think that is such a beautiful analogy, not just for birth and the contractions and all of that, but also just for motherhood in general, because there's just so many moments, whether it's the kids not sleeping or the tantrums or all of these things, that you just have to surrender into the wave and let it come, embrace it, say it's a period, it's a phase, it's a season, and then it will move past it.
Look how you found that though. It was the ultimate surrender. It was the ultimate letting go of having to switch gears and flow with what was happening, through the C-section.
Yeah.
And I also feel through your experience, it just shows you how important it is to have the right people in the room because from day one, you told me the story of what happened. And what really stuck out was, you're going through this switch of plan and having someone in your ear saying, I'm so sorry, when they should be you got this. And it is interesting because I think in the birthing room, it always sticks out to us, even though we're kind of in this zone. I remember that one nurse who was looking at me being you got this. And my doctor who felt oh, come on. I felt that. And I hold on to this day that I switched doctors a second time because I felt I was inconveniencing her with how long it took. And again, I work out a lot. And everyone's oh, you're fit. You're going to push this baby right out. And my baby was sunny side up. We had to use the vacuum. He took 3.5 hours to come out. My second one was also sunny side up. I pushed him out without a vacuum. But it was just so interesting because I was I don't get it. It was this race almost. And I think, again, it's one of those things that it's so important to feel supported by the people in your room because birth can go 1,000,000,001 ways.
You will always remember how you were supported, how you were, heard, spoken to, treated. It's you'll remember how your partner showed up, how your doula showed up, how your doctor showed up. And when I work through birth trauma with people, with my clients or somebody that I'm coaching, it's not about what happened so much. It's about how they were meant to feel, how they were treated, how they were, their choices were taken away. They weren't respected. It's usually about that. Really what's coming up a lot with you is the way you were supported.
Yeah.
The lack of support.
The second time I was so supported. And then I remember Joanna asked to go into the room and they said no, which I was very upset about too, because she was such a rock for me. My husband's great, but she was my rock, but she waited for me outside. She was in the room when I came out. She was making sure my baby was latching properly. And I felt so supported by her. And she truly had the power to change my entire experience so that this time I had no shame around it.
She loved you. I remember her.
I loved her.
She's you have to meet her. She's so sweet. She just loves you so much.
She truly was just a breath of fresh air. And I think it's so important for people to have that and for people to know that's possible. Even I think maybe in LA and New York, doulas are more commonplace. But I do feel did you ever look into getting a doula?
I thought about it. And then for some reason I didn't do it. I don't know why, but now, if I did have a third, I'm okay, this sounds to have the right doula.
It's another hug.
Yeah.
It's another.
Oh, well, I will say during my first birth, I was crying on the phone to my mom at the hospital, being I should have had a doula.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because basically they were didn't want to send me into the room yet to get an epidural. And I could feel the baby was coming out. And I was and my doctor was the one who said to me, actually, it wasn't all bad. She did say to me, get that epidural as soon as you feel pain. And I wasn't prepared to feel pain because I didn't do any of the breathing exercises or anything. I didn't know how to handle it. And they're you're not ready yet. by the time I went back to the room after like 45 minutes of waiting, I was already 4 centimeters. And they're like, oh shit, she's ready. I'm like, I'm telling you, like the baby is like coming out. And I felt like no one was hearing. It was like, when you're in a dream and you're screaming and no one can hear you. That's how I felt. And I think that would have been helpful then.
Yeah.
Another thing that we didn't talk about, you mentioned the breathing exercises. Like I also had Nina who did like
she's the best.
Yeah,
Love
the
Nina.
breathing techniques and like mindful meditation, like all this. And those things are so important. And like how they taught, both Joanna and Nina taught my husband, like how he could be there for me. And we talked about it. I'm like, if I'm screaming of contractions, like how do I want my husband to be? Like, I definitely sometimes don't want him to be touching me. I told him, to be completely honest, that I wanted him like over there and I wanted Joanna helping me, like my doula. And like that needed to be have like talked about before, because like when you get into that moment, like you want to know those things already. And I'm sure you do that a lot.
Totally. I work a lot with the couples and plant little seeds. And, I'm really big on looking, it's when I had this whole conversation the other day yesterday with my doulas that I'm mentoring, but get to know your people, because the way they do life is the way they do birth. And the way that they show up for you, your partner shows up for you in life, is the way they're going to show up for you in birth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important. And also I like to work with people within the realm of who they are, not try to change somebody or try to make them be something they're not, because it's so worse when somebody's like, we need to make you this. The biggest gift you can give somebody is acceptance and like, let them shine within the realm of who they are. So it's like, look at the partner and be like, okay, where are you good? Like, where are you like, where you shine and you can really be helpful, and like, let's use you in that. And we can fill the holes in other ways when necessary.
100%.
What would you say to first-time moms or first-time pregnant to be moms who are terrified of giving birth? And they hear these birth stories, like how would you ease their minds? Because that was me. And now I'm like, shoot, I just want to have another child just to give birth. Like, I think it was so fun. But like, what would you say to these moms that just have so much fear around it?
The first thing I do with my clients when I do birth prep is tell me your stories that you've heard around birth.
Mm.
And I'll be like, first of all, do you see how they're all different? And second of all, you can hear when people are like, oh, you're pregnant. And you have to stop it. Like you have to put up a boundary and just be like, listen, I'm trying to stay in the positive zone. And also, if you're not careful, those stories can become your story very easily. And then you're carrying around this fear that's been projected upon you that wasn't yours to carry. So it's like, you have to be really clear about like, what's mine, what's somebody else's. And sometimes we grow up with the stories from our parents. And also I would surround yourself with people that did have good birth stories. For some reason, I don't know why women do this, but they love to talk about the worst part of their birth. And it's almost like a badge of honor to like talk about it. And I always say, remember how all these people are saying this to you right now? Please don't do this after you have your baby, because just as it's affecting you, it's going to affect everybody that you talk to. And
totally.
There's always something positive even in the hardest outcome, something beautiful, just like in life, right? We can look at that. And I always tell people too, when I prep them for birth, the attitude that you are in during birth is going to become your story. So if you're just like, this sucks, I hate this, I'm miserable. It's just like in life, right? If you go through life being like that, your life's going to suck. Your birth's going to suck. And that's going to be your baby's story, how they came into the world.
Yeah. In addition to the negativity, I do find though, like there's a lot of like glamorization of like this like unmedicated birth or home birth, or like as if like they're better than, and then the people feel shame if they get an epidural or a C-section. And that's also where like a lot of the shame that I got too, is that you go on social media and it's like, do X, Y, and Z, and you can push out like even a 10-pound baby and be unmedicated and all that. And like, well, that's great. And I'm happy for you. Like, and yeah, I would have probably loved that too. Like that didn't happen for me. And I think sometimes with the rise of social media too, there's a lot of like, kind of shame that's like pushed onto you.
Yeah. There's really bad things about social media and really good things. And the great thing is you have the power to stop following somebody if you need to. Or you can just block that. You know what I mean? You don't have to. You really have control over what you see and what you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, everybody's different. The good parts are social media is that we're showing people that there's another way to do things that people didn't even realize is possible. You could do everything that everybody on social media is telling you to do and still end up the way you ended up. And it's like, you didn't fail.
But it can feel that way. Like
Yeah.
I remember there was these videos about breech babies, and it was like, if you do these 10 exercises daily, like your baby will flip. And I did them like twice a day. Like, I'm not even kidding. I would take my calls like in an inverted position. Like I did all the things. And moxie brushing my husband did every night, like everything. And it made me so consumed. But seeing it all on social media, I mean, like, it's so easy. And then all the comments, I did this and it worked. And it's so hard to, again, let go of control and be like, I'll do it. I'll try. Like, I tried it all. But at the end of the day, like, you can try it all. But then you also have to, again, like the waves, surrender and like just move forward. And if it doesn't happen, let go.
Babies, as hard as it is, babies pick the way they want to come in. We don't have control. Babies are really the ones that they pick their time. You can even schedule a C-section. Be like, I'm going to get my C-section on 11/11 at 11. And I guarantee you, somebody's going to come in with an emergency and your C-section is going to get bumped. And there goes your 11/11 at 11 because it's not your baby's time. Do you know what I'm saying? So it just, we can do everything in our power. And then it's like, you have to work, like just work towards your intention. And at some point you have to surrender it over to something bigger than you,
So do you think there's a point in having a birth plan? Like, a lot of people are like fixated on their birth plan.
I do. And I call it a birth preferences, not birth plan, because it reminds me of New Year's resolution, right? New Year's resolution is set in stone. I always set my New Year's intentions. It's a little bit more fluid, right? There's room for magic to come in. There's room for me to flow with maybe something else that might be better for me or something. So birth plan, I like to call it birth preferences. It's a way for me as a doula to educate my clients on choices that they have and options and the way a hospital environment works, and for them to walk into the birth saying, this is the way I want to be treated, my birth to be handled and my baby to be treated, in a system that sometimes doesn't let you know that there's options. And it's to walk in there. And what's great about being in LA is they'll ask you, do you have a birth plan? And I make sure I go over it with the nurses, that they read it, that they chart it, that they put it all down. And I always tell people when I'm doing this, nothing is set in stone. This can change at any minute. We're just doing this to walk in with your way. But if you're like, I changed my mind and I want the vitamin K, we're going to get you the vitamin K. If you change your mind and you want an epidural, we're going to get you an epidural.
Yeah. What happens to the moms that are like, do you ever get this from someone's like, even if I ask for it, do not give me the epidural. And then they're screaming for the epidural, like in the movies, how they're like, no epidural. And they're like, give me the epidural. Like, do you see that happen?
Yes.
And how do you act?
Well, I say, I will push you, but I can't lead you further than you're willing to go yourself, and sometimes if they really want to commit to this, I'll keep them home, obviously, as long as I can, because it's really easy when you're there with the candy.
Right.
And, right in front of you, and you're out of you're at home and you're in your space, and it's easier to kind of relax. So I try to keep them home long enough. And then sometimes I'll create a safe word, so if they're like yellow flowers and, it's like if they say epidural, and I've had people chanting epidural, 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 epidural. And it's like, sometimes they just want to know like, hey, like this is a lot, like I'm in pain. And I'll be like, you're doing great. You just take a deep breath in and then they'll move on, right? And then if they say yellow flowers, like,
they're serious.
Yeah. And it's like, basically I tell them that there's no more negotiation, that we're going to get you help. So if you say it, there's no taking it back. Let me tell you, they're going to think about it for a long time before they say it. And then sometimes they'll say it like, right before they start pushing. Because right before they start pushing, you're like, screw this. Late. I'm not doing this, because it's right before you're about to meet the baby is like, usually we hit this birth wall. And I'll be like, it's because probably you're about to meet the baby. Are you sure you want the yellow flowers? And then they'll realize where they're at, and then they'll either keep going. But usually when they say the safe word, I'll just get them help, because I know they thought about it for a long time.
So what point do they usually, you said right before they start pushing is usually when they want the epidural, or?
Sometimes it's earlier. I mean, I had some people that are like, I thought I could do this. They might have back-to-back contractions. You don't know. You can't predict birth. I can't tell you right now, like if you're going to have a really long first stage of labor, like pre-labor, early labor, and then it just goes really fast. I can't tell you if your water is going to break before birth. I can't tell you if you're going to push for 5 minutes or 2 hours or 5 hours. I can't tell you if you're going to end up with a C-section or not. Like, we don't know. It's the ultimate adventure date. There's going to be a baby, and it kind of makes it, you just have to go in with, I think, not preparing and putting your birth in someone else's hands. We prepare for weddings. We put all this time and energy into it. And then when it comes to the birth of your child, it's just like, I'll do whatever they say. And like we talked about it, it stays with you for the rest of your life. It imprints your baby. And, I think there needs to be more care in that. And that's also your initiation to motherhood. You did everything. And there's a part of that where you have to be like, you know what? I did. That's like the initiation into motherhood.
Yeah. What I find so refreshing about you and Joanna and the amazing doulas out there is that you never push your opinions onto things. Like, I remember I actually went into early labor and I had no idea. My stomach was just hard and I had no idea. So I just called Joanna, like, do you want to stop by? And she's like, I'll come over. I was already 4 centimeters dilated and I had no idea, no contractions. Or I guess I was having contractions. I didn't feel them.
Yeah.
And then my doctor came over too, 5 centimeters dilated. And there is a possibility that you could have a breech birth. My doctor personally was not so confident in himself to be able to do that. And I remember looking at Joanna like, what do I do? Like, do we try and whatnot? And she just was like so steadfast and calm and just like allowed me to figure out the answer first, and zero judgment, zero shaking in her voice, And you can really tell, like, I'm an energy person, and you can kind of tell when someone's like looking at your decision being like, oh, I wouldn't do that, or like putting shame on your decision. And I think it's so powerful when you have someone who is just like, yeah, you do you. I'm here for you no matter what. I'm not going anywhere. And also, like, the breech that I had was fingerling breech. So like my doctor had said if he was complete breech, I would probably think about it more. But if he's fingerling breech, there's a lot of risks with that. And I was like,
now
and Joanna said too, was like, yeah, he's amazing. He's probably going to retire for my next baby. But
I love him.
Yeah, again, it really does matter, like, who's around you.
Yeah.
Changes everything.
Yeah. He loves a VBAC.
I mean, there's not that many. Okay, we talk about this.
Yeah.
There's not that many VBAC doctors out there.
I know.
And so
or breech. And it's really sad because, like, it's another form of, it's like to take away someone's choice that wants to do a VBAC because they're not comfortable with it. And even twin births, vaginal twins. Like, people are like, no, I'm just not comfortable. We're going to section you. And it's like, why? It's, I just did a vaginal twin the other day, like a month ago. And it was great. And
sometimes it's easier because they're smaller to push out.
Well, it's just like people aren't taught that now in medical school.
Well, my doctor said, and he's amazing, you know him, and he said, if this was 20 years ago, I would have for sure done it. I was more ballsy and I would have done it. Now I'm older and there's so many liabilities and so many things that I don't even want to go down there. And it's interesting and honestly sad how our times has made people so risk averse, or like not even risk. Like it's again, like it was possible. He said he would do so many breech births when he was like younger.
I've done them with him.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And he just felt like at this age, and I totally understand him, and he wanted the VBAC for me so badly. And we both like wanted it so badly. And he even told me, he's like, by the way, third baby, you can totally have a VBAC. Like, there's no science that says from the second to the third, like, you can for sure do it. For me, it's just a question of like, which doctor do you get that can do that?
Well, we'll talk because I have some.
Great.
And so does Johanna.
Great. Yeah. No, I know. She's going to be my first call. But it's hard that you have to even like look hard for it.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I got pregnant with my second, I went to my doctor who delivered my first. And listen, he's an amazing OB and I truly love him. But I asked him, I'm like, I'd like to have a VBAC. And he was like, okay, like you could try. Typically we cap it at like an hour or 2 hours of pushing. And I came back home to my husband. I just like didn't have a good taste in my mouth because if I'm going to go for the VBAC, I want to have full support. I don't want to be capped at a time. I don't want to be like told that this optimal conditions need to happen. And when I went to see my new doctor, he was like, of course you can do it. Like, of course, like, and set me up really from success at the beginning. So again, like if someone's telling you no, like it's okay to like look elsewhere and find somewhere
for sure.
else.
Your team is so important. And it's got to start from the beginning. And I can't tell you how many times people will start with me and they don't have a care provider. And I'm like, let me help you form your team. And I'll really get to know those people and find the right people for them. That's something that doulas do too, is like we build the team. So a lot of people will hire me before they even have a doctor or a midwife.
I hired Joanna before I had the doctor.
Yeah. And your body, you open till 5 by yourself. Like, look what
that's why I'm like, if it wasn't breech. And like, you know what? Some people say like, oh, you could have just stuck with your doctor. You're going to have a breech anyway. But like, or C-section anyway, because he was breech. But it's like the regret I would have had, or like the what if I didn't go this whole direction. Because in my head, I'm like, why did I go through this whole process of like switching and all the things I did to try to flip him? And it was such a full-time job. I spent so much money and time on doing all this. But at the same time, like, I don't have regrets. I don't have any what ifs. I turned every single stone over.
Yeah. At least, you know, you've squeezed the lemon as much as you could.
You healed. Yeah, that's healing.
Yeah.
There's something very healing in that.
Yes.
And maybe the outcome was different than you thought, but that journey, if you really, like, there was something very healing in that.
Are there any like crazy birth stories or a story that sticks out to you? We have to ask that. I mean, I know every birth is wild and whatnot, but is there any ones that like just really stick out to you?
I mean, I've told this one before and I'll tell you it again, but there's this client who lives in Vegas, who she's one of my favorite human beings on there. I did 4 babies with her, and I'm very close with. She's like literally one of my favorite human beings. And her first baby, her water broke. I was out to dinner here with some friends, and all of a sudden she's like, my water broke. And I was like, all right. And it was like 11:30 at night. I get in my car and I drive to Vegas. And I am like drinking coffee, and I get there at like, I don't know, 3 a.m. And she's like having predominant labor. Like it's just going on. The midwives in Vegas are they're a little rogue. They're a little like, I'm like, it's the wild, wild west out there.
Right.
You know, like Vegas is a whole other, you know. So I show up at 3 a.m. We go a whole 24 hours. The midwife comes and checks, like, you know, checks on her. Nothing's really happening. Kind of leaves us alone. And I'm like, where's this pitch? I mean, we need to like, I'm sorry, but like, I'm not used to this. I'm used to like Johanna and Abby and like people that are like, they're like really on it with me.
Right.
Finally, we were so delirious. Like this was, I don't even remember. It had to be like 36 hours later, 40 hours later. I was like, all right, are you ready to like get the show on the road? And she's like, let's do it. So I put her in this meditation, and I have her, we start talking to the baby, and then we start doing all this woo-woo stuff. I'm like talking to the baby. She's talking to the baby. I haven't slept. She hasn't slept. We're a mess. And all of a sudden her contractions start getting like close, and they start getting closer. And I went over there on July 2nd. It's now July 4th in the day. And all of a sudden out of nowhere, I hear this voice that says, I want fireworks. And I go, oh my God, the baby's going to come on with the fireworks. And she's like, oh, okay. Like, whatever. And then her husband comes down. He's like, what are you guys doing? And she's like, stop, sit down. It's working. So like, she starts contracting. Okay. Like now we're like totally in like the groove, and we're just like, and I call the midwife, and I'm like, they're 3 minutes apart. And she's like, I'll be over in an hour. I'm like, cool. So I have her in the shower. I'm setting up the tub. We set up the room, and the midwife says, well, that's some interesting news, some good news and some interesting news. And my girl was like, she goes, what do you want to hear first? She's like, the good news. And she goes, well, you're 9.5 centimeters. And she's like, oh, great. And she goes, but there's a butt coming out, not a head. She's like, what are my choices? And she said, well, we could go to the hospital and you'll give you a C-section, or midwives in Vegas can stay here and do breech, home births. And I didn't know this lady, and she left us alone. So I was kind of like, okay. So I gave her, Dr. Berlin has I
went to see him every day.
I'm sure you did. I know you did everything. Has a movie called Heads Up. And I was like, I put that on for her. She's 9.5 centimeters, standing there laboring, you know, and then I gave her husband the other side of it. So he's reading, she's doing this. The midwife's like, you know, let them have their time. And I'm like, I'm going to support them in your choice. Like whatever they want, I'm just giving them. And then she was watching the movie. She goes, you know what? Let's do it here. I'm going to be okay. The baby's going to be fine. And I was like, okay, support them in that. And I just said to the midwife, look, I was like, I don't, you know, have you done a lot of breech? Like, can you get another assistant here? Because I don't know what to, like, I can't do resuscitation if anything's happening. So she got another midwife who was amazing, who ended up delivering her next 3 babies. She starts in the tub, the fireworks start going off. And all of a sudden she starts bearing down and pushing. And they're like, listen, we're going to do it in the bed. So we get her in the bed, the butt's starting to crown. And the butt starts coming out. The fireworks are going.
Oh my gosh.
And the butt comes out and then all of a sudden the whole body's out. The fireworks are going. We've got the candles, all the stuff. And then she pushes and then the midwife goes, I need you to really give a good push. And so she gives this big push. Baby's head comes out and the baby doesn't breathe right away because breech babies don't breathe right away. But they gave it some time. And then I heard this voice that said, talk to the baby, call her, because she knows your voices. So they started talking to her and they're like, hi, baby, welcome to the world. And all of a sudden, the baby, after they started talking, she opened her eyes and cried. And then the grand finale of the fireworks.
Oh my gosh.
That was like,
it's like textbook picture perfect.
I mean, it was crazy.
And for it to be in Vegas, it's like,
yeah. Vegas. Oh my gosh.
And I've told the story so much and she loves it. She's always like, I love that I'm famous. That I like, you tell my story all the time.
No, that was an epic story. Yeah. I feel like, wow. It's just crazy how birth can work. And sometimes it's like, you really don't think that these things could happen and that these and so much of it is like mindset and intention, but it just is such a wild ride.
Yeah. And what I love so much about you too, in particular, you really help the mother after birth, because we talk a lot about identity crisis postpartum and the becoming of a mother. And it doesn't come easy and natural for everyone, like even though social media likes to think so. But you also like help support them in the whole, like not just the postpartum blues and not just the eating and the nutrition and the breastfeeding, but also in who they are like after.
Yeah. So I don't do postpartum. That is not my jam.
You don't?
No, but I do a lot of coaching with people in postpartum.
So that's what it was.
So postpartum, I definitely outsource because I know where I'm good.
Yeah.
Which is pregnancy and birth. And then afterwards, I always find them a great postpartum doula, baby nurse, whatever they need. We really work on the support system and kind of try to prepare them for what's to come. A lot of people don't want to hear it. So then I get the call, can we jump on a call?
And so it's the coaching that you do.
It's more the coaching. And, they're not the same. And even during pregnancy, so much comes up. It's so clear to me, like what's coming up for them is helping them prepare them. And then we really integrate that. And that you are so different after you give birth. And each time you give birth, both of you, I'm sure you're not the same mother you were the first time. You're not the same mother you are now. And if you have more kids, you're not going to be the same mother then. So it's a constant integration. And, you're constantly going to the next level. And with that, some things kind of like fall away and new things are being birthed. And it's like a rebirthing constantly over and over again. So I help them with the identity. With any birth, there's a death of some kind. Things change. And not everything has to stay the same.
And it's okay to grieve certain parts of you to make space for something new.
That's a huge part of it. Like you can grieve the old and be excited for the new. Mm-hmm. And I did do a post on that.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about that in my Mindful Mom to Be program, is that you can have conflicting thoughts, that there is a grieving of the old as you're stepping into the new. And even I'll get the women in class to talk about that. And they're like, yeah, I'm grieving like my relationship, but I'm excited to be a family and be parents. I was work. And I have anxiety a little bit about like what that's going to look like afterwards. And I mean, you can't plan for it. That's the other thing, because you don't know how you're going to feel. It's like you're planning for something because you have no idea how you're going to feel. But it's just, again, allowing it to flow.
And just surrendering. Mm-hmm. It's the theme of it all, just surrender.
Well, thank you so much for being on here today. And where can everyone find you?
Thanks for having me. LoriBregman.com is my website. And my Instagram is lbreggy, LBREGGY.
And if someone wants to work with you as a doula, she's very in demand, but do they DM you? How does that work?
They can email me or DM me, but definitely book me early.
Yeah, because I get when you're pregnant.
Right when you pee on a stick. Yeah. No, we could have spoken to you for hours. Yeah. This is so incredible. And we hope that any moms going through pregnancy right now just feel a little more clear about
and at ease.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Lori.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
You're both awesome.
Oh, thank you. This was amazing.